My name is Tig McIntyre. I'm an Associate Professor of Environmental Psychology at Maynooth University. And here at Maynooth University I coordinate a master's programme in Environmental Psychology, the first of its kind in Ireland, and I coordinate EU-funded project called Go Green Routes, which is promoting urban health across 6 European cities. Climate anxiety is an umbrella term. What we think it refers to mental distress due to environmental and ecosystem loss. And that kind of encapsulates two current threats we have globally. So one is around climate change, and climate change is both short-term and long-term effects. So the short-term effects might be from flooding or climate-related meteorological events, and that can lead actually to trauma, so post-traumatic stress disorder for those who are afflicted by that. On the longer scale, we can see that climate change can lead to this form of psychological distress for individuals who are anticipating future events. Other components of this, we think it's also related to ecosystem loss, so degraded natural environments, how people have less and less access to green space, or the green space they have is impacted by climate events. For example, in cities they've got increased heat island effects. What's actually happening is there's changes right now in our cities which are impacting people's lives. And this is, exacerbating people's long-term concerns or psychological distress. The most recent research in Ireland on climate anxiety is from an EPA survey. And in that they found out that I think 40% of respondents said they were very worried about climate change. And what's really important about this is 1 in 3 of them said they talked about it a lot. And this is the kind of link between climate anxiety and providing solutions. If people reach out and engage in discourse about it, they access social support, which can reduce anxiety, and this can help activate them instead of paralysing them. We're doing something different. Rather than just ask people in a survey their attitudes, we're actually working with people in 6 European cities in our project to find out what it means to them, how they think they can change it. And we're doing this through different methods like walking interviews and focus groups, because we want to understand what's the meaning behind the stress and anxiety they have. And I guess the other bit is we actually measure sleep, because we're trying to find another way to look at anxiety rather than just self-report. So in our European project, Go Green Routes, we go beyond survey research. What we do is we do walking interviews with people across 6 European cities, and we want to hear their voices and hear the meaning behind the stressors that they feel about climate change. We also measure sleep, because sleep is an indicator of stress or anxiety. And this way we will have greater understanding and more evidence around the impact of climate anxiety. One of the really interesting findings about climate anxiety is people who report being high in climate anxiety. If you bring them to green space, it has paradoxical effects. In other words, instead of that ameliorating or reducing their stress, it actually increases their stress, because they're very ecologically aware, so they can tell the difference in terms of biodiversity between a woodland and a manicured green lawn. The other side of climate anxiety is that it can be used to increase advocacy. We'd recommend that people that suffer from climate anxiety engage with others in advocacy and take on ambassadors roles, like the An Taisce Climate Ambassador Programme. They would work with local communities. They would engage in citizen science projects. So by becoming activated about climate anxiety, and that means they become agents of change. And that really takes them away from the worst case scenario for them, is that they become paralysed by this challenge. So one of the challenges with climate anxiety is that it can be exacerbated by today's news headlines. Perhaps sources which aren't rigorous in terms of their reporting. So we'd recommend, if you have a high degree of climate anxiety, is to manage the window that you have into news. Manage what sources you use reliable sources. Look beyond the headlines, because some days the headlines might be so overwhelming you mightn't even want to get out of bed. However, the story behind the headlines is rarely so dark. Barack Obama says that, we're the first generation who will suffer the consequences of climate change, and we're the last generation who can do something about it. So that creates a bit of anxiety in all of us. So if we take that as our start point for everybody, so everybody should have some climate anxiety. If it's overwhelming for you and you don't want to protest or outwardly engage in things, there are many ways that your voice can still be heard. Many ways we can mitigate climate change through food we buy, through community gardens, through being an advocate for different behaviours like active travel, or engaging in citizen science around climate change. It's about finding your path, but the only way to find your path is actually speak out. Speak to friends, speak to those that are concerned for you and your well-being, and let them know how you feel, because climate anxiety should be actually a conversation we have every day.